Alright, I'm singing, I'm just singing and singing until I pop up on the stream. Looks like I'm up, how is everybody doing today? Hope you're having a wonderful day. Oh, I'm going to drink some water until I see people in the chat. There we go. Hello. Hello, J. Shelley 720. Hello, Ringworld. Hello, my cat, who I didn't know was hiding in this room. There's Newt right there. Hello, Corey. Hello, Defender. Hello, Miguel. 'Cause I've got faith of the heart, and no one's gonna bend or break me. Hey, Starfleet boy, how are ya? Laser Pipe, hello everybody. Igor, Pedro. Hey, this glorious clockwork. Good to see ya. How are you doing? Yes, he is named after Newt Scamander. Yeah, Newt is named after Newt Scamander, which in light of current news, with the author of Fantastic Beasts, it's I somewhat regret the decision. That'll be fair. I do like Newt the character, and I do think it's a good name for a cat. He is now currently on my bed, curling up in some blankets. So that's where Newt is right now. He's within reach of me, but you can't see him. So, I would love if Strange New Worlds Seal. I would love if Strange New Worlds actually had a like an actual worded song. We're gonna get a new theme song soon too, by the way. We're gonna get a new theme song in just a few weeks with the new Lower Deck show. So there we go. Hello, Anime. Glad you finally caught caught a live stream. And yeah, it could be a Macbeth reference, and it could be a Monty Python reference. He turned me into a newt. Oh, I totally agree, Corey McGivney. I also completely unironically love the Star Trek Enterprise theme. We were just talking about my cat's name is Newt, Fada. His name is Newt. Hello, Gavin Robinson. But yeah, what was I gonna say? Sorry, I'm just my brain's kind of off. I've been having a lot of anxiety this week, to be honest, which is why this is named like chillaxing, because usually hanging out with you guys helps me relax. But yeah, I've just been having. Honestly, I've just been having a lot of anxiety this week. So for numerous reasons, a lot of it just sort of like wanting to live a life that doesn't feel like this right now, because I don't know. This past week, the weight of the world has just been getting to me. So apologies if I'm a little off this live stream. I'll probably get there in the end, but yeah, I just wanted to tell you guys all where I'm at. Newt from Aliens. I hope not as bad as Newt from Aliens, because I like Newt and Aliens, but just don't watch the beginning of Alien 3. Because things don't go super well for Newt, unfortunately. How do I feel about the video submission for that job went? I mean, I think the video came out well. You could ask This Glorious Clockwork, who's in the chat, who actually watched the video. He's a friend of mine, who helped me. Thank you very much, This Glorious Clockwork, by the way, for helping me on that video. But yes, I think the video came out. I think it came out really well. The one thing I'm a little disappointed in is I did a section of the video where I shot at Vasquez Rocks, a famous Star Trek shooting site, and the audio turned out crap because I only have I have a nice like shotgun mic that I use when I'm shooting videos for the channel, and this mic when I'm like doing voiceover and stuff. But when I do, when I go out in like the field, all I have is a little crappy lavalier mic, and it's not great. Even in a perfect environment, it doesn't sound perfect because it's kind of an inexpensive lavalier mic. So the sound didn't come out great, so I redubbed the audio, like in studio, said the audio in studio, then tried to make it sound like it was outside. A few people helped me make it sound like it was outside. And I just, after I sent the video in, I re-listened to it, and I just didn't like the delivery. I found it too in studio and not like I was like outside. But then again, I don't know, maybe I'm being hypercritical. I don't know. Won't hear back from the job until at least the deadline for the job, which was Polygon Video Producer, by the way, in case anyone was curious. It was for a job at Polygon, which is one of my favorite websites ever, and as a video producer there. So, yeah. Anyways, yeah, I submitted, and I won't hear back until at least next week because the deadline for applications is this weekend. So we'll see if I ever hear back from them. So anyways, thank you. Sorry about that. Sorry about ranting about the job thing. But yeah, I'm just hoping it comes back. I do have another job interview on Tuesday next week, which I'm actually very excited for too. The Polygon job. Let me put it this way. Hopefully no one who interviews for these jobs is watching. But Tuesday I have an interview for a job that I'm very excited for, but it is not like on the dream job level track, but it is one that, like, if I got that job, I would be very, very happy with it, and very excited about it, and feel like I could put a good interest in it. But the Polygon job is like dream job level, so I have some options going up, but my anxiety is mostly like, if I don't get those, what do I do? Kind of catastrophizing before things happen, because I'm like, I don't know, being back in Los Angeles, I feel kind of lonely again. And things like that. Anyways, we don't need to focus on my anxiety, but just feeling lonely and kind of worried about trajectory of my life, which I think all of us are kind of feeling to some degree or another. So we'll see how it all turns out. But I just kind of want to break out of this moment in my life right now. But again, that's not a universal feeling. Anyways, let's talk about some fun stuff. Some people are asking me about Transformers. I do love Transformers quite a bit. I don't like, well, that's a lie. I find the Transformers movies fascinating because they are a look into the pure id of Michael Bay. Like the pure, unadulterated, like he's just going to do what he's going to do. And so I find them interesting on that level. But, I also get very sick watching them. They're just too much for me. Whenever I sit down and watch them, I honestly always feel sick and overwhelmed by the movies. I am very excited. I did like the 80s movie. I thought the 80s movie was solid. And I am very excited. They said they're going to do an animated one in the near future that I am, like an adult animated Transformers movie that I am very excited for. And I'm also very excited for... there was one other I did like Bumblebee. I thought Bumblebee was solid, and I think if they keep going down that route, I think that was a solid way to go. So yeah, I have more critical things to say about the Transformers movies, but honestly, I'm just kind of tired to delve into my full thoughts on the Transformers movies. But they are particularly interesting. I find them interesting, and if I can say anything about a movie is if it's interesting, that is more to me. I'd rather a movie be interesting than boring or bland. So I will say, at the very least, they are interesting movies, not necessarily great movies in any way, shape, or form. Dash, you asked an interesting question that I wanted to answer. Jesse, would you consider a position at an educational institute as a classified employee? I know there's one opening up in Riverside here. I actually would really love to be a teacher. I am very, my family is a bunch of teachers. My mom's a teacher. My grandparents are teachers, at least a good chunk of them. And I like teaching, as should be obvious by this video. I mean, by my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is just me teaching stuff that I find interesting and cool. And actually, if I hadn't gone into video, I probably would have been a teacher. And there's an element of me that sometimes regrets it or thinks like the path that could have been. I would have loved to have been an English teacher. It would have been an interesting path to go down. So, and there's an element of me that thinks about graduate school too. I would love to go to graduate school for film studies, and do like a film graduate thesis on like trans representation, things like that. I've considered it, but obviously right now is probably not the best time in the world to go into graduate research. But I really would. I don't know. I've always kind of thought about it. Maybe it is a path to walk down in the future, but I want to try and figure out the immediate future first, see if I get any of these immediate jobs. Reinhardt68 says The Old Guard coming out on July 10th on Netflix. Yeah, I'm very excited about that. Charlize Theron is one of my favorite actresses of all time, mostly because I like women who can beat the crap out of me. Oh, thank you very much, Andre Jones. I really appreciate that. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, and I thank you for coming in, and I'm glad you enjoy the videos. So I really appreciate that. But yeah, I'm excited to see The Old Guard. I think it'll be an interesting movie. The reviews have been solid for it. I could use a solid actress that I like helmed superhero movie. Seems like it would be fun. RGD says, do you know when Discovery Season 3 comes out? I do not. Sadly, I do not. My assumption would be... I thought my guess would have been that Star Trek Discovery Season 3 was supposed to come out before Lower Decks, but then got pushed back because of the pandemic. And so now Star Trek Lower Decks has been moved up, and we're getting Star Trek Lower Decks in less than a month. A little less than a month at this point. So we're gonna get Lower Decks, and then my assumption would be Lower Decks would go on for 10 weeks, so that's 2.5 months, so that'll be it starts in August, September, October. So my guess is we will probably hear news about Star Trek Lower Deck, or Star Trek Discovery Season 3 towards the end of Lower Decks run. And if they're smart, they will try and either overlap it or just have when Lower Decks ends, Star Trek Discovery Season 3 will begin in the near future after that, depending on when they're able to finish things up. So my guess, if I had to make a bet on when we would see Discovery Season 3, I would say probably between November and early November to January. Somewhere in that 3-month range would be where I would stake my claim on seeing it. Maybe end of October too, but I would say probably you'll see it in November. If I had to pick 1 month, I would say November. 100% would be my. Hey bud, where are you? Hey buddy. Would probably be where I stake my claim on where it would be. Sorry, I'm just petting Newt now. He's being affectionate, which is not always normal for him. He's sometimes very like, I want to bite ya. Anyways. Let's see. The Wii U, what are we talking about? Can you talk about how amazing of a console the Wii U was and how it was severely under... Oh my god, Aaron. Hello, Aaron is in the chat. Aaron and I were actually talking a few days ago. And I ranted about how much I hate the Wii U. I had a very long rant about the only thing that a Wii U owner should feel is shame, and I say that as someone who has owned a Wii U. I don't hate the Wii U, but God, it was an awful console. Aaron and I, we watch, on Fridays, we watch movies together. And I watch my movies on Netflix on my TV, and she has to watch frickin' Netflix on her damn Wii U. And so anytime we have to pause the movie, it takes like an hour because our Wii U thing has to boot up to pause the thing. But yeah, so I don't hate the Wii U, but sorry, I don't mean to hate up people who have the Wii U. I don't hate it. I just think that it was a console that was not as good as the other consoles out at the time, nor... Why is my hair like that? Jesus. Nor was it as powerful. There were some good games on it, but on a whole, the Wii U was not the best. But some people did develop good games for it. Let's see. There was another question. Pedro asks, Jesse Gender, tomorrow is my birthday, and I just want to say that I consider a birthday gift to have found your channel. Oh, and that I watch you and your insights and opinions. I love you. Thank you so much, Pedro. I really appreciate that. Well, happy birthday in advance. Happy early birthday. And thank you so much. I'm glad that you enjoy coming to my channel. So thank you very, very much. Oh, thank you so much, Designer Core. Oh, that is, thank you. That is super generous. Thank you so much for that super chat. You are freaking amazing for that. Thank you so insanely much for that. The Wii U is my Mario Maker doohickey machine. That's awesome. Yeah, Mario Maker was great. I need to get Mario Maker 2. I feel like I would enjoy it. I feel like it would be a good time. I'm also thinking about getting Dreams as well. Dreams is a really solid thing, creator tool on PlayStation 4. I've been thinking about getting that and then just doing some fun Twitch streams of Dreams, just playing it and seeing what would be out there. Let's see. Stress Free K, best series ever, upload on Amazon. Have you seen it? Upload was the one with because I think I have seen it, but there was two that I almost get confused. So I want to make sure I'm talking about the right one that I have seen. Yes, okay, this is the one that I have seen. Yes, I did see Upload on Amazon. I loved Upload. I thought Upload was actually fantastic. It reminded me quite a lot of Good Place. It felt like a more techno version of Good Place, where it was like an afterlife show, kind of playing with the rules of the afterlife. There's sort of a mystery twist involved in it. I don't think it hit the highest levels of The Good Place, because it was The Good Place just hit me in terms of like the characters being heartwarming and it dealing with philosophy, whereas Upload didn't really have as heartwarming characters and philosophy in it. But that being said, I think Upload was a super, super clever show. Very well acted, very, very funny. The romance between the main characters, the two between Robbie Amell and I forget the woman lead in the show, but the romance between the two of them was very believable. Got me invested in it, and that's saying something, considering like I'm not someone who gets super invested in a ton of relationship storylines. So I will say Upload is a fantastic show, and you should definitely buy it and or watch it, I should say. And it's a ton of fun, very clever sci-fi, and just an enjoyable time. Anime2124 is asking, have you read any of the Witcher books yet? Yes, I have. I'm actually on the second Witcher book right now, which is... What is the second one? The first one was The Last Wish, and I'm actually in the middle of the second one. I don't even remember what the name of the book is. Whatever. I'm in the second Witcher book, the second short story books of the short story books, and I'm really loving it. I think it's a really, really good series. There is an element of like it's a slightly older novel written by a guy, so the women in it, it's like Yennefer, are a bit like she titted at him boobily, sort of thing to her. Like she's very much described in those terms. It's not as bad because at least Yennefer has a little bit more agency than some other characters, but she is mainly described in terms of her relationship with the Witcher, and her wanting to be a mother. So it's a bit disappointing in that aspect, like, oh, the woman character wants to be a mother, and she's talking about being in a relationship with the guy. So there's a little bit disappointment there. But other than that, let me just, before I keep going, I'm going to let my cat out of the room because he's scratching. Whee! Coming back. Ah, hello. Okay. All right. So that's my big problem with it so far. But in terms of the rest of The Witcher, I think it's a wonderful update of fairy tales. Like there's a wonderful short story that was like a retelling of Beauty and the Beast in a much sort of darker format. And I really like that it's very much more morally ambiguous than most fantasy stuff. Where unlike Game of Thrones, which is also morally ambiguous, but it feels, the fantasy elements of Game of Thrones, at least until the end, feel much more ancillary. And so it feels almost like a straightforward, just fictional, it feels like a historical drama with some fantasy elements sprinkled in until you get to the later stuff. Whereas The Witcher is very much grounded in its fantasy elements. Like the dude literally fights monsters and stuff, but still has that sort of mystical fantasy edge to it. So I think that's kind of why I like it, and I think it's sort of an interesting differentiator from Game of Thrones in that it's still like same tone as Game of Thrones, but is much more grounded in its fantasy setting than Game of Thrones is in terms of like what it uses those fantasy elements for. So I very much enjoy that quite a lot. Though I think that its female characters are not as well developed as they could be. But you know, that's not an uncommon refrain, unfortunately. Pedro's asking about making a video on denobulins. Yes, I probably will. Because I am currently, just so you guys all know, I am currently starting 2 longer form projects that I want to work on. One is I'm going to be going through all the Kelvin movies. And then I'm also rewatching Enterprise, and so I'm doing a video for every season of Star Trek Enterprise, and then a 5th video on Star Trek Enterprise at the end of that. I just finished editing my Season 1 video on Star Trek Enterprise. I'm in the middle of my rewatch of Season 2 of Enterprise, so you'll probably be seeing those come out in the next, 2 or 3 months or so. So within that, I will probably be talking more about denobulins. I didn't talk much about denobulins in the first video, just because they didn't really touch upon the denobulins all that much in the first season. Phlox was really the only one, and he only had really 1 episode in that season that was sort of a Phlox-centric episode. I know he gets more as we go on. But John Billingsley does a great job, and I always like the denobulins. I actually wrote in fact, I think one of the first ever fan fictions that I ever wrote was a story set on Denobula, where the Enterprise actually goes and visits Denobula, and Phlox has to meet his family, and they get caught in a hostage situation and everything. I think that should exist still out there in the world. In fact, let me see if I can find it in chat. But I did write some of that. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. I gotta find it. It's under my old name, James Earl. Let's see. Let's see, there they are. I'm gonna just find it for all of you, because I guess they no longer exist online. That is very unfortunate. Let's see, maybe I can find it really. Oh, they actually are saved here. I wrote it, there we are. There it is. Oh, thank you, Archive of Our Own. You saved these stories for me. So here we are. The link I just put in the chat is a link to my old fanfiction that I wrote about Denobula. So Pedro, if you're interested in seeing Jesse's old take on Denobula, that link is in there. Mark the Edge, and welcome, Mark. I know you said hi earlier. I didn't get a chance to respond because I was in the middle of ranting about stuff. But you're talking about Orphan Black. I loved Orphan Black. I watched Orphan Black for its first 2 seasons. I got into season 3, and then I kind of dropped off of Orphan Black in season 3, just because it kind of got really caught up in its sort of espionage thriller storyline, and it got really complicated and weird and out there. And I I love a good political thriller sort of thing. So that show was right up my edge on that. But the problem with a show like that, where it's so focused on its sort of thriller corporate espionage storyline, is that as the show goes on, it needs to just get more and more complicated. It's oh, but there's another shadowy group above these people that you've been paying attention to for the past 2 seasons, and it's actually really more complicated and confusing. And so it's that's the problem when you get into shows like that, where it's the idea and the kernel of idea is super fascinating. The first 2 seasons are really great, but then it just sort of spirals out into complexity, because it doesn't really it sort of spirals out into complexity, so it doesn't really feel like it's saying anything new anymore. So yeah, that was my problem with it. I think the first 2 seasons of Orphan Black are great. I think the only thing that I really was disappointed with that show in its first 2 seasons was I wish it had dealt a little bit more into its nature versus nurture stuff when it came to things that we don't necessarily think as nature versus nurture. Because, for example, they had for those of you who don't know, Orphan Black is a show about clones, and so you get to see this one actress plays multiple different versions of the same character, because they've all been raised in different circumstances but have the same genetic pattern. So they all develop different personalities based on their life experiences rather than their genetics, which is a fascinating concept. But then you also get into this weird gray area where there's one of the characters is a lesbian, one of the clones is a lesbian, one of the characters is a trans man, for example, which indirectly kind of implies that being LGBT is all about the nurture and has nothing to do with nature whatsoever. Which I'm not going to say it's like super problematic, because there's probably a kernel of an idea that is true in that. Like, I'm sure there is an element of being LGBTQ that is nature, and part of it's being nurture, and it all depends on a lot of different factors, I'm sure. But the show never really addressed it all that much. It just sort of said, like, that's how the way they are. And I wish there was a little bit more delving into it. But then again, I could also understand, like, delving into it can get super problematic super quickly. So you never know. So yeah, it was an interesting sort of thing. What are we talking about? Nina Noma? Pedro was asking some questions about that, I think. Yeah, I mean, what did I write yesterday? I wrote a video yesterday on trans representation in pop culture. I'm talking about the amount of words that we can write. My problem is never that I can't write enough words, is that I write too many, and I need to cut back on things. That's why my videos are always super long. I'm always like, I want to write a 10-minute video, no longer than 10 minutes. Every video ends up being 20 minutes. But yeah, just yesterday in 2 hours, I kid you not, I wrote this in 2 hours. I wrote, how many words? And this isn't meant to be a brag. It's just explaining to you that you can do it. It is doable. So in 2 hours, I wrote 5,000 words. So, it's doable. Definitely a doable feat. Oh, well, thank you very much, Wellington Smith. I really appreciate that. Thank you for the super chat. I couldn't think of the word. I really appreciate it. Jesse, I just rewatched DS9, The Abandoned, last night. It struck me that Jem'Hadar were introduced during the Clintons' super predator lawmaking. Do you think these two things were related? I don't know. In fact, it's been a while since I rewatched The Abandoned. Let me just pull up the information on it, so I can get a quick refresher on what that episode was. Let's see. An infant is found in the wreckage of Quark's ship. Buys the salvage. The baby grows in it. Oh, this is the one where it's the young Jem'Hadar who gets all, and it's sort of like again. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know enough about Clinton's administration to be able to say if there's a direct one-to-one. Clinton is actually one of the few presidents that I actually know modern presidents I know very little about, because I know a lot about Bush. The only things that I really can immediately remember about Clinton is Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and obviously the big scandal. I do not have sexual relations with that woman. Those are sort of the big things, and that a lot of Republicans hate him, obviously, because Republicans hate all Democrats. So stop it, Corey. Dex is right there, and you know it. Don't scare me like that. But yeah, so I don't know a ton about him, so I don't want to speak out of turn about his policies in a direct way. So, but it is, I could definitely see it. I mean, the thing with Deep Space Nine is it is one of the most directly political Star Trek shows. Like the thing with the Next Generation is, and the original series as well, though the original series was also sort of straightforward political, is that it was kind of dealing with nebulous concepts and ideas of prejudice and problems. Like, there was no direct, there was a few episodes, but there was less direct, like, this equals this in this administration. It was sort of like, here's the concept about torture, here's a concept about terrorism, here's a concept about It wasn't necessarily direct, like, this stands for the Clinton administration. But when you get to Deep Space Nine, that was a little less true. You had a little bit more one-to-one parallels in that show going on there. So I think you could definitely probably say that it was a reaction to Clinton's policies and Clinton in general. So I think that would be very interesting. Gretchen Badger, have you watched Disclosure on Netflix? If so, how did you feel about it? I loved it. I love that every voice in the documentary were trans voices. I have not finished it. I'm in the middle of it. I've been sort of parsing it out over the day, just because I've actually been writing a video about trans representation in pop culture, based on the book that I wrote about trans representation in pop culture. Plug. So I've been actually watching it in pieces because I've been sort of like watching it and then like, oh, that's a good idea. And then I go write some stuff and sort of delve into it a little bit. And you're welcome, Wellington. Sorry I couldn't answer it in a more confirmed thing. Words just like I just had a brain fart. Yeah, sorry. Just literally had a brain fart there. Apologies, everybody. I'm just like, disclosure. That's what we were talking about. But I've been liking it so far. I guess the long and short of it, it's a very good voice on it. I think the thing that I guess on one hand am glad, like, sad that they didn't do as much, but I'm kind of glad that they did do, is that a lot of the film Disclosure focuses on, and I think rightly, because it makes it much more personable in the documentary. It focuses on each of those different trans voices, like Laverne Cox and I forget a bunch of the others. There's a ton of trans actors and actresses and creators in there. But it focuses on like their personal relationship with these representations and then sort of extrapolates what those different representations would mean. And they didn't necessarily put it in a huge, wider film theory context. It's just sort of like, here's a representation that someone may have caught, and here's how it reflected on a trans experience. What I find interesting, and what my video is going to do, sorry to plug my video before I even filmed it, or even I just finished the script on it, but what my book does, and again, sorry to plug my book, but is try to place trans representation within a film theory context, most notably within like the male gaze concept, and sort of tie in how the male gaze makes trans people be perceived. So I guess I'm happy in one level. Like, I think Disclosure made the right thing because it makes it feel much more personable and sort of makes you understand the importance of representation to trans people, which is you want to engage on an emotional level with a documentary like that to get people to feel why these things are important. For me, as someone who likes to be all smarty pants about it, I would love to, the video that I want to do is trying to be much more like Lindsay Ellis, let's talk about film theory sort of stuff. So I think that that's sort of the distinction that I'll bring to it. Mine's going to be much more academic and boring, which is why I'm going to be wearing a queen costume in it. I'm going to go full royal regal stuff. It'll be fun. Make it a little less dry. It should be an enjoyable stuff. We're talking about Sense8. Sense8, one of my favorite TV shows of all time. Sense8, I think I'd have to sit down and like make a list, but I think Sense8 is probably my favorite show of all time. It like hits this weird niche of exactly what I love about film. It's a medium to connect us all. Like, Sense8 was all about how we connect with each other and find empathy with each other across identity. And if that's not what I try to talk about all the time, then I don't know what else there is for me to talk about. And so Sense8, I think, just showed that in such a beautiful way, such a unique way. The scenes where like it's just music and it's about people just experiencing life. Like, I think one of my favorite scenes is in the finale, where they all put in the earbuds and they just dance to music together, and they're all sharing music across, they're just enjoying each other across the space, just enjoying the experience of listening to music. It's such a beautiful thing, and it doesn't have a fear of bodies. I mean, there's orgy scenes, and the orgy scenes are like funny, but they also make you feel less shame about your body, and just reveling in human experience and how human experience transcends identity to just make us connect with each other. It's such a beautiful show, and if you have not watched Sense8, I highly recommend it, because even more so than I honestly, and I've said this before, I think the message that Star Trek tries to get across is distilled through its purest form in Sense8. I don't think you get. I think that Sense8 and Star Trek actually try to share very much the same message of taking delight in the identity and difference of others, and I think Sense8 is that feeling made, that delight, that joy, that feeling deep down is made manifest in Sense8. And so, whereas Star Trek is a much more intellectual look at it, and a much more flawed look at it too, because just the nature of the creators behind the show. I think Star Trek is a much more intellectual take on that idea, whereas Sense8 is very much the emotional take on it. Not that both shows aren't smart, but I think that would be the distinction that I would make. I have not seen The Alienist, Tess Cattell, so. Someone asked, who was it that was asking about D&D? I have played D&D. I play D&D regular. In fact, if you want to see, it's not Dungeons & Dragons, but if you want to, again, a little bit of a self-promote, I do a weekly Star Trek RPG game with Lore Reloaded and Lore Runner that is over on Lore Reloaded's channel, and then also is a podcast called Star Trek Behind the Lines. If you look up Star Trek Behind the Lines on Spotify, Google, or iTunes, you will find a RPG podcast that I do. It's mainly comedic. Basically, we're playing the most corrupt and inept Starfleet crew in all of Starfleet. We've done 2 campaigns so far. The first campaign that I did with Ketwalski. Ketwalski played a fun Denobulan, by the way. And then let me see if I can find this link too, so you guys can find it. I find the iTunes link, Star Trek Behind the Lines, for you. So I can just promote myself. Why not? But yeah, season 2. I'm playing a very Han Solo-esque Andorian character, which is kind of fun. There it is. Let me just share this out with all of you. Here, yeah, it is using the Modiphius system, Joe. So that link, I just put it in the Twitch stream, YouTube chat. Stream. Where did I say that? The YouTube chat is the link to the podcast. So if you want to subscribe there, it's the link to the iTunes version. It is on Spotify and Google Drive too, and live serve, something like that, where it's hosted. So I'd very much recommend checking out. Also, I might as well self promote a little bit on this. If you guys can, even if you don't want to listen to the podcast, that link that I just sent, if any of you could go in there and actually give it a 5-star review to that podcast, because the way iTunes works, the algorithm on there works is it will recommend podcasts that have higher reviews. So if you could jump in and give that a 5-star review, I would be very, very appreciative. And so would Lore Reloaded, who is in the chat. Hey, Lore, how are you? I'm just naturally this cool, you know. That's how I do. I'm as cool as a cucumber. I guess I just proved that I'm not cool. But it's good to see you, Laura. It's nice to see you people in here. You people. I just refer to you as multiple people. It's good to see you, Laura. I don't know what I'm doing anymore in my life. Corey McGivney asks, how have you read the Star Trek Green Lantern crossover comic? Yes, I've read the first one. There was 2. I have not read the second one, but I have read the first one. A lot of fun. I'm a huge DC Comics fan, and I'm a huge Star Trek fan, so you cross those 2 over, and I'm just jumping for joy. I'm just overwhelmed. I'm just so whelmed, as they would say in Young Justice. Yeah, it's a very solid comic. Sometimes crossovers can be a bit like perfunctory and sort of like, all right, you're reaching here. But Green Lantern and Star Trek actually weirdly felt fairly natural. It does have that whole like, we're crossing universes thing. But I also like, in a weird way, that, number one, I liked that they gave a bunch of different characters like rings, so you got to see who would have what. Like, obviously, you know, Romulan gets the greed ring. Klingons get, I think, the fear ring or rage ring. I forget which. So yeah, it very much was just fun to see who got what ring in that. So that was a fairly enjoyable piece of that. What else was there? Oh, also technically, also, I've been thinking about doing a fun little video on this. Technically, the Green Lantern comics are canon. So technically, because the way that this works, by the way, just so everyone knows, the comic line is written by a specific writer. I forget the name of the writer, but he writes the general just Star Trek Kelvin comic book line. And the writers of the actual Kelvin, not like movies, Alex Kurtzman, Robert Orci, J.J. Abrams, have said that those comics are canon. And in fact, one of the comics gets referenced in Star Trek Into Darkness. McCoy references the fact that he has given birth to Gorn babies, which is an event that happened in the comics. So the comic line is canon. Technically, those Green Lantern comics are in line with that canon of the comics. And there is an element in the second comic, I have not read it, but I know this. At the end of the second comic, some of the Green Lantern members join the crew of the Enterprise. So what that means is, technically, during Star Trek Beyond, there are Green Lanterns somewhere in the bowels of the ship of the Enterprise. So just so everyone knows, technically, if you watch Star Trek Beyond, there should be Green Lanterns on that ship, which I find particularly hilarious. To be aware that technically, very technically, Green Lanterns are canon in the Kelvin movies. Now, obviously they're not really, but very technically, you could theoretically make that through line that they are canon in there. So that's just a fun little piece of like tidbit information that I find kind of fun. So. Still need to watch the third season of Young Justice. You should, some random geek, watch the third season of Young Justice, because this is not the only reason it's a good season, but they also have a non-binary character in that season, which I really loved. In fact, they had a non-binary character in that season I guess she still used she for a long time, and I don't mean to misgender her, but I guess they would probably be the better way to put it. My apologies to misgender that character. But they present as feminine presenting, I should say. So while they're non-binary, they are feminine presenting and don't have an issue with presenting femininely, which I always really appreciate, because with a lot of non-binary representations, you tend to get like, I'm non-binary, so I want to dress in grays and not show any sexual sign, like any signs of masculinity or femininity or whatever. I'll just be sort of like just very drab and kind of like boring in my presentation. So I like it when a show or movie or anything shows a non-binary person still presenting as masc or femme. So I think that's a lot of fun to sort of see diversity even within the non-binary community, because the non-binary community is super diverse. So that's awesome. And again, apologies for misgendering the character for briefly there. Let's see. Yeah, apparently Wolf and Wolverine. That's what I just said. Worf and Wolverine got along really well in the X-Men crossover, which makes perfect sense to me. I think that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I agree. Androgyny can be slick and attractive without even necessarily going one way or the other. And androgyny does not need to necessarily be the purview of non-binary people. I mean, David Bowie, from what I can tell, David Bowie always identified as a guy, but he was certainly androgynous. And I mean, look at there's a lot of rock stars that kind of had that feel of androgyny that weren't necessarily identifying as like trans or anything. But definitely were androgynous. And not a lot of non-binary people are the opposite. Some non-binary people are androgynous, but some non-binary people are presenting in a much more masc or femme way, or anything like that. So it's an interesting sort of gender is diverse. I tend to ascribe to the idea that I know this. I tried to describe this to my family, and they were like, no. But I think there are many genders as there are people. Yes, we can sort of put things in little buckets, but everyone's presentation of their gender and how they present gender to the world is uniquely their own. And I think we need to categorize them just to be able to talk about them. But really, in actuality, in an individual's life, your gender is just your own gender. And you may have similarities to some people, you may have differences to some people, but everyone's gender is their own. So. I wish Generations could have gotten both casts on board just for a buddy comedy subplot where we would have had Worf and Chekhov. Yeah, I mean, my problem with Generations is it just didn't really feel grand enough or important enough in any way. Like, to a degree, I get the argument of like this is a Next Generation movie. You had a great send off to the original crew in Undiscovered Country, and I understand the Next Generation crew not really want make it a Next Generation movie. Don't make it an original series movie, and so I understand that. And so honestly, I honestly don't have a problem with the way they structurally with the way they chose to do it. With like have a little intro with your original series crew, have a little cameo, have a little bit of fun with that. I know they try to get Leonard Nimoy and everything on there, but you know what? If it's give Scotty and everyone his time to shine, which I thought I think the first like 15-20 minutes of that movie in the original series timeline are actually kind of fun. They work well, and Kirk's sacrifice at the end works pretty well for what it is. The twist that Guinan was there was a nice little twist. So I think the first few minutes of Generations are actually a fairly solid movie. The problem is the rest of the movie with Soren and the Duras sisters, and then Kirk dying like a chump with that with the bridge is just like dull. It doesn't feel grand enough to be like this crossover movie of like the next, like it's supposed to be this big movie of like the Next Generation crossing over with the original series, and you got William Shatner in there and all this stuff, super exciting. And it really just boils down to like a dude wants to shoot missiles at some things, maybe kill a few people that you don't even see on screen. And like Soren is such a dumb villain because like his plan is to like shoot missiles and like kill a bunch of people, like, and he doesn't even need to kill those people. As far as I could tell, I'd have to rewatch it, but rewatching that movie, it's like, couldn't he have just taken a ship and flown into the Nexus? Couldn't someone just have rented him a shuttle and he flies into the Nexus and lives out his life the way he wants to? Which, you know what, power to you, I don't have a problem with that. You want to be with your Nexus family, go be with your Nexus family, who cares? But he has to like shoot missiles to like murder a bunch of people. It's just so contrived and ultimately like boring. And then to have Kirk like die for a planet we don't give a crap about, we don't even see. It was just like have him save Earth or the Enterprise or anything. They don't even save the Enterprise. The Enterprise still gets blown up in that movie. So it's like, come on, just something that felt more relevant and grand. I think would have befitted. Like I rail about this in the Kelvin movies, where every movie needs to feel like it's the end of the universe. When you have a crossover between the Next Generation and the original series crew, having a bigger plot than killing a planet we never see and don't really care about off screen is warranted, in my opinion. So there's some stuff to like in Generations. I like Data's stuff. Yeah, I like Data's stuff. Guinan's stuff is pretty solid. I actually like the part about like Picard dealing with the loss of his family. So there is good in there. I don't want to say it's a wash, but I think the overall plot of it was just kind of bleh. So what are you gonna do? So I ranted about Star Trek Generations there for a while. I need to rewatch it. It's been a minute since I watched it, to be honest with you. So yeah, some random geek, you made a good point that they do try to explain why you couldn't just get into the Nexus, but it is still kind of contrived. I mean, I feel like if this dude is so smart, if he's so smart, like I feel like he could have found a way to do it without killing a bunch of people. Like he even has the missile thing, so it's like, why not go to a planet that the Nexus, that you shooting the missile will not kill everybody? Yeah, I don't know. It was just there was just ways to have worked out that plot. I mean, like, the dude had patience. He'd been around for 100 years waiting to get this plot off. So, like, give him, like, just say, hey, Picard, can you help me get into this Nexus thing? Want to do it without killing some people. Picard would probably be like, sure. Why not? Yeah, it was just so contrived. But yeah. Well, so I'll staying around for another 10 minutes or so. So if anyone else has any more conversations that they want to if we want to keep talking. Yeah, I'm surprised they never did a Mirror Universe centered movie either. I mean, the problem with the Mirror Universe is that like it's The problem with the Mirror Universe in a lot of ways is that it's somewhat cartoonish in its depiction of like, haha, we're evil fascists. It also doesn't make much sense. Like, I like the Mirror Universe. Like, I like Discovery's Mirror Universe. I liked 50% of Deep Space Nine's Mirror Universe episodes. And I liked the original series episode, obviously. But it is sort of like, when you start thinking about it too much, the logistics of the... Oh, and Enterprise's Mirror Universe episodes I absolutely love. But it's just like, when you start thinking about the logistics of it, it gets kind of... Like, why are these people... Like, why... You know, if things are so radically different, why is Kirk still being born? Why is Spock still being born? Why would... Like, if this whole... Like, the whole Terran Empire dissolved and fell apart because of the Klingon Empire Alliance, why would like, Deep Space Nine characters still ever be born? It was just sort of like... It's sort of contrived. And then the, like, cartoonishly fascist. Like, not to say that that kind of world doesn't exist and couldn't exist. It very much could. But it just boggles the mind to a degree in how cartoonishly over the top it is. So I do like the Mirror Universe, but it would be hard. It would have been hard to do a movie on it that wouldn't have felt weirdly over the top. So, Jesse has whole videos on the Picard series. Yeah, someone was asking me about the Picard series. If you want my thoughts on the Picard series, I did a video. I did reviews of every single episode of Picard, and then I did a season-long review of Picard. So if you want if I could point you to any video, if you look back through my back catalog, like about a week or so after Picard ended, I did a video that was like my season 1 review of Picard. So if you want my thoughts on it, go check out that video. That's sort of my more concise thoughts. Quick thoughts on it. I liked it. I think it had problems, but I think generally overall I thought it was a solid first season. But it was very it had problems. Someone's been asking about your review. It was asking about favorite Trek books, or Matt Fine was asking about Trek books, and your review was saying favorite Trek novel writer. I will say, I would probably say Una McCormick might be my favorite novel author that is like currently writing, because Una McCormick, it kind of hits the niche that I really like, in that she writes most of her plots as like political plots. She writes very deep, like, enthralling political plots. Most of her stuff is focused on, like, the Cardassian, post-Dominion War Cardassia. So she has all these plots about, like, the rebuilding of the government and the shame that a lot of Cardassian people feel. So I would very much... I very much... And so, like, politics stuff is something that I've always find particularly interesting. And then her Star Trek Picard novel was to be honest with you, her Una McCormick's Star Trek Picard novel is almost what I wish the Star Trek Picard show was. I would have almost rather see her novel have been made into the show than what they eventually did do for the Picard show. But that's my taste. That's to my taste, because I just like political plots. Like, if I'm not watching Star Trek, you'll usually find me watching political movies, like The Contender I just watched the other night, American President, anything like The West Wing. So yeah, if you're like me, you'll probably enjoy the political plot. Oh, Mija Kojio, hopefully I'm saying your name right, but Mija, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you for the super chat. You are wonderful. I really, really do appreciate that. Oh, and hi, Allison Park. Well, welcome. I hope your wisdom teeth removal went well. I hope you're being healing well. I hope you get like the puffy cheeks that you get after wisdom teeth removal. That fun bit. So I hope you're healing up well. I hope you're not in too much pain, and I'm glad that my videos could help comfort you in that. So I hope you feel better, and I hope it's going well. And welcome to the channel, Allison. I'm glad to have you here. So what else? I'll answer one or two more questions if anyone has any stuff. Also, I like Peter David. By the way, I should say for Star Trek novel writers, Peter David also had really interesting political plots, especially in his New Frontier novels. But Peter David also had this like wicked sense of humor. Peter David has this wicked sense of humor that I really quite enjoyed. So Peter David's also pretty fun. Yeah, the Excalibur series, that's the New Frontier series. I would very much recommend those. But yeah, he's very funny and very political in a lot of ways. So those were a lot of fun. Okay, so I see two questions that I'm going to answer, and those are going to be my last ones for the chat. First one is Joe McClory's question was about Dresden Files. I have not read the Dresden Files. I do want to. They seem like they'd be right up my Excalibur, right up my alley. I did, however, watch the old Dresden Files show way back in the day with, I think, starring Paul Blackthorne, who was better known for his time on Arrow as the police chief on Arrow. I really liked the Paul Blackthorne Dresden Files. I thought it was really solid. Thought it was a lot of fun. I'd probably have to go back and rewatch it, but I thought it was a good little investigation show. So after watching the show, I've always had fond memories of the Dresden Files, even though it only lasted a season. And I've always wanted to read the books. I've just never gotten a chance to dive into them. So I will. I do want to read them. And then the last question that I want to answer, because a lot of people are talking about it, Foundation, the Foundation trailer and the Asimov Foundation novels. So I'm actually I'm kind of alternating between Witcher novels and Asimov's like sort of Robots, Empire, and Foundation novels. So in terms of my introduction to the series, I've read all the robot novels. I love the robot novels, even again. Asimov's writing of women notwithstanding, which Asimov is even worse than Witcher novels. But yeah, Asimov, not the best writer of women, I will definitely say. But beyond that, his robot novels I've read. I'm finished 2 of his 3 Empire novels, so I'm gonna read that last Empire novel still, and then I'm gonna start for the Foundation series. And I'm hoping to get through the Foundation books before the show actually starts next year. There is, for those of you who have been asking, there is a Foundation trailer that came out for Foundation, the show that will be airing on Apple TV or whatever the Apple's streaming service is, which who watches that, but I will watch this. I really was impressed by the trailer. The trailer has me very excited, has me very pumped for what that show could and will be. It's going to be very hard because from what I can tell, I having not read the Foundation novels fully yet, but from what I know of them, and that they take place across thousands of years, it'll be interesting to see how they adapt it, and how they adapt that story. But again, I haven't read the books yet. I kind of just have a vague idea of how that universe is set up. So I'm very excited about that. The 2 things that have me most excited about it, though, are the fact that Jared Harris and Lee Pace are going to be in the show. Jared Harris, I freaking love Jared Harris. Jared Harris is so fantastic. I've loved him in The Expanse, and I've loved him in Chernobyl. And I've seen Jared Harris before then, every time I've seen him. But particularly Chernobyl and The Expanse, I think Jared Harris is freaking fantastic. So I'm very excited to see Jared Harris in that. And then also Lee Pace, who I've always loved. I've adored Lee Pace in everything. Everything that Lee Pace has ever done is beautiful. So that's going to be the answer to that last question there. I see people are already wrapping out. I do want to watch the Ron Moore show on Apple TV too, Langley. I agree. I do want to, for All Mankind, I want to get around to it. So yeah, I'm going to wrap up there, and that's going to be the end of this live stream. The only thing I will ask is if you guys can, I think I shared it earlier, but I'll see if I can share it again. I just put a link in the down below to the podcast that I do, the Star Trek RPG podcast. So please, if you can, even if you don't want to listen to the podcast, though, I recommend it. It's a lot of fun. It's very comedic. If you guys can jump over to that and just give it a 5-star review on iTunes, I'd be very much appreciative. The only review on there right now is my review. So if you can jump into that Apple podcast feed and just go on iTunes and hit 5 stars, it would really help me out, and just help get that show noticed a little bit more. But regardless, if you don't want to do that, that's totally fine. I'm just glad that you'll stop by. You are all beautiful and amazing. And hey, Council of Geeks just showed up, another person that I do a wonderful podcast with, which you should also check out, called What the Frel, where we go over Farscape. So nice to see you, Council. Good to have you here, even though I'm about to wrap out. So good to see you. Check out those 2 podcasts. Give that 5-star review if you can. It would be very helpful to me and that podcast feed. And beyond that, I hope that you all stay happy, healthy, and wonderful as you all are. So I wish you all live long and prosper.